Amazingly, I have owned this for over 6 months now. And I think it is 100% time to give you a full rundown on the car and what it is I think is good, bad, or just unmatched with this car. And it is by far the best non-hypercar McLaren has ever made. Starting with the outside aggression, they added the ground effects and the aero to the outside of the car, which took an amazing looking 720 and just added it that extra notch of sitting still, beauty, and aggressive to make it unmatched in its class across the board from any other manufacturer or McLaren. It not only looks good parked, it also looks good moving, and that's something not every brand can pull off. I feel like, for example, Ferrari looks amazing when it's moving. It doesn't look as good when it's stationary. Lamborghini looks really good stationary and mediocre when it's moving. This one I think is the perfect blend of both when you see it in motion versus when it is sitting still. And that's a weird thing, but not everybody, like I said, can pull that off. The inside, they didn't change a lot. They didn't mess with what worked really, really well. On this one, they just added more carbon fiber. Especially with mine with the center seats and the removed carpet, so you see all the different pieces of carbon everywhere throughout. There are multiple types of carbon. At some points you can see forged, you can see the fat structural weave, you could see the tight, close together structural weave, you can see the glossy, like beauty, cosmetic types all together in one. It's a really cool mix of all of it, and they all have different purposes, and you can almost tell what those purposes are by just looking at them. So they kept a really solid, good mix of touchscreen and knobs and buttons from the 720, and they didn't mess with what was good, and they just added some extra add-ons of carbon fiber and like the seats and a few other things to just make it that much more special. As far as the performance, obviously they threw a little bit of extra horsepower in, and that's great, but really where this car shines over the 720 is the gearing that they put in it. They made it a lot more engaging and fun to drive. The lower gears are a lot shorter, so you get to play around more, you get to shift, because let's be honest, most of us that own these cars, we don't get to drive them where they're up at 200 miles an hour or anywhere near it. So previously with the 720, the gearing was in such a way that you got to shift once or twice and you were done. This one you get to play around a lot more and feel as if you're doing more with it. Put that with the fact that they put the stiffer engine mount so you get to feel the rattles and the vibrations more and stuff, to where they did a really good job making you feel like you're in a race car, but make it comfortable enough that you could drive it daily and for long distances, where most of the cars, when you get there, they're too uncomfortable. Most cars, when you get to the race car versions of them, like the Squadra Corsas and all those that Lamborghini makes, or the whatever the silly names that Ferrari always puts on them, they make them too stiff and they make them too uncomfortable to drive for any distance. This one, like I just did on the previous video, I took it on a rally. Everything was good. It wasn't overly uncomfortable, and other than the small gas tank, there was really no problems at all with this car. It's not flawless by any means though. It's very close, but there are a few little things that unfortunately just aren't quite what they should be. Honestly, they're probably more annoyances than actual problems, but still overall, when you're talking about the overall car as a whole, those annoyances, if there's a few of them, they stack up, and sometimes on other brands, there's been enough of those annoyances where I've moved on from that car. So let's go over a couple of those real quick. My biggest complaint with McLaren up to this point, I have not gotten to a 750 or played around with it to see if they fixed it on that one, but up to this point, the navigation and user interface is not good. That's the nicest I can be about it. It is actually horrible. Most times the car doesn't know where it's at. Sometimes it does, but the maps are all outdated. It's such a silly system that would have been easily fixed if they would have just put in Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It's a 2021. It obviously was around by then. It was easily accessible by then. Makes absolutely no sense why this didn't have it, but it didn't. So that is the number one annoyance, because then, like Anytime you go somewhere and you need navigation, you can't use the native navigation. And with your phone, you have to put it somewhere, usually the cup holder. I've tried multiple little phone holders, and they're either in the way when they're suction cupped to the screen, or they're just making little dents or something to where I don't want to damage the inside. So it's in my cup holder, and it's forcing me to look down, which all in all is not horrible, but it's forcing you to take your eyes off the road. It was a huge fail. That should have been the upgrade for this that made them that much better. They didn't. So that's the biggest annoyance for me, is these days, everywhere you go, you use your phone for navigation. There's absolutely no way to get it to talk to it. I've even looked for aftermarket add-ons to this. They don't work with the 720 platform, which this is, and so I can't even pay for that upgrade. There are some parts of this car when you watch it, you just don't have access to. It's really hard in the vents here in the front to get into, but you can. But I'm talking about if you look down from this scoop, there's a piece of glass here shaped like a toilet bowl. It's a cool name. You can see the top of the engine. That's really cool. It's glass. You cannot get there. So when you drive through water, it splashes up, it dries, leaves a little water spot. You can't get to it to clean. There's some other stuff in the grating and around different lights and different areas where they're just too small to get into. So you never feel like you fully cleaned it. The gaps here by the door and where the side skirt comes up, it's really, really, really hard to get in there with a towel or anything. You can, but you still look in there, and I mean, short of just taking little brushes or something, getting into a lot of these places, you just can't get in there. And that makes it frustrating for a car like this that you want to have clean and shiny all the time. But again, annoyance, not a huge problem. There's absolutely zero storage inside the cabin. The 720 had the little doors, like compartments that flip down. I could put my registration in there. I could put a garage door opener in there. I could put lots of little that type of stuff, like a pack of mints or gum. The door does, where those compartments were on the 720, has mesh. So they've decided that compartment apparently was too heavy, so now it's mesh. And I think that was a mistake. They should have left those cubbies there for just that paperwork and stuff like that. I've tried before to have a picture on my phone. That doesn't work spectacularly well when someone's irritated coming to your window asking you for that stuff. They're not huge fans of the fact you don't have it readily available for them. There's a huge problem with, I have my wallet, it's got the RFID blockers, and if my key gets behind it, the car won't sense it, and then it doesn't matter. I can take it out of my pocket, wave it around. It's not sensing the key. I have to sometimes get all the way out, lock the car, unlock the car, get back in with the key in my hand before it'll sense it. So there is like definite key sensor issues. I don't know what I would do if the battery in my remote died, because I have yet to find the actual spot where you put the key for the car to sense it. Everywhere I've read or think of or been told of does not make it start. So I'm at a loss how to start this car if the remote battery dies. That's a big, big problem, especially in my line of work being a locksmith. These are all my keys, in case you didn't know what I'm standing by. That's a little embarrassing when you can't help someone else that has one with that problem. One of probably the most common complaints about this car I have is how small the gas tank is, not just for long drives, but I feel like I am putting gas in this thing consistently and constantly, and I'm like, I know I park it in the garage, so it's not as if someone's stealing it, but it feels that way. That's how little of a gas tank this has. And the door itself for the gas flap door is the cheapest door on any car I've used. It's just really flimsy plastic. I think, I get they're trying to save weight, but it could have, like, it literally like wobbles around. It's never in the same spot. I've pushed in on it, 'cause it's one where you push in and it releases it and pops out. It gets stuck in. So that again is just something, like, they're so busy designing all this other amazing stuff, it's almost like they just threw whatever they had on there, and it's parts from IKEA. So it's cheap filling, but it does the job, it functions. I just wish it felt better when you use it. Other than those few things, this car is all positive. I don't want to give you just a whole bunch of things I like about the car. I also want to be realistic and tell you the annoying things that you might have to deal with, especially if you want to drive it on a consistent basis, like there not being anywhere to put anything inside, and it rattles. I happen to like the rattles that come from the engine and the motor and that kind of stuff, but if you put your wallet and your keys, or if you carry a knife, you don't want to scratch the seat, you put it in the center and it just rattles the whole time. So that is also an annoyance. If you had something where you could put it in and close it, it would just muffle those rattles so you didn't have to hear it all the time. But when you're driving, you get to hear the amazing sound of the stock exhaust, which I'm sure if you put aftermarket exhaust on, it gets even better. But just even the stock exhaust, it sounds so good. And I haven't really been wanting to do upgrades or anything like that because the stock sounds so amazing. I can't think of anything to do to like fix or upgrade it, minus a few more carbon parts. Mine has the carbon 1 and 2 exterior packs. So there's a couple things I could add to get it bumped up to be visually the carbon pack 3, even though like the sticker won't say it. And like these rails right here that run down the side of the car, those aren't carbon, and I think they look spectacular carbon. So that might be the only thing I upgrade. Might be. The wheels look great. The only reason I might change them is to preserve these and make sure nothing happens to them and just put something else on. So if potholes or something like that causes issues with wheels, it's aftermarket wheels that I can then put the stock wheels back on and make sure that I keep such a cool car, low numbered, as clean and easy to resell if I decide to at some point as possible. That's the problem with a lot of people. They get these cars and they hack them up and then they think the value is going to be where they are stock. Most collectors don't want cars that have been molested and touched. They want them to be as they were from the factory. So as much as I like to do custom stuff, that's why I do a lot of wraps and that kind of stuff, because it gives me the custom feel without devaluing the car for the next person who doesn't want that crazy stuff. Let's get down to what I love. One of my favorite things about this is the rear wing and the amount of movement and the size of it. Now I know the 720 had active aero, and I know I keep comparing it, but it's because this is the big version, final version of the 720. And the wing, they made it move so much more and be so much more interactive. I think that is what gives it so much more downforce. I mean, sure, there's some other parts of aero that help that, but the wing itself does so much more to where this, in the 720, I used to hit the aero button to make it pop up and do more. This one, you don't have to. It's down, it's up, it's flipping up to help you slow down. It does so much and it's so amazing. It makes me feel like I'm in a hypercar. And it's one of the coolest things. I know it can be problematic if you don't take care of your car the proper way, but that's why I always have it on a maintainer. I drive it at least every other day. Worst case is I'll go a week without driving it if I'm off doing something else. But I consistently drive it, not just start it. I have the full battery and consistently drive it, and that eliminates so many of McLaren problems that people are always talking about. Is just you have to use it, actually use it on the road, and you have to keep the battery at the top of its charge always. That gets rid of so many problems. So if you have one, make sure you're always doing that. Like I said, the exhaust is so much better than any of the other cars I've had. Not the tone, but the exhaust itself. Like I get the Aventador I had sounded better. This is the best sounding McLaren I've been around with stock exhaust. I've heard a couple people with tunes and some other exhaust maybe sound a little bit louder and you get that pop from the shifts and stuff better. But stock, the location of the quad tips, the mesh around it, the visuals of the tips being titanium, and the tone you get is just, it's really, really good to where I have not even really considered upgrading that. Like, it's just perfect. Visually and everything, like, the only thing I'd want is if I wanted louder or more of the pops, and those come with tunes and stuff. And like I said, I'm not inclined to do that with this because I don't want later that to devalue my car. I'm not only owning this as an investment, but it is a huge part of why I bought this car. Has all the right options and it will hold its value. So I have to do my part and make sure that I'm helping keep that value. The only thing I'll really do to devalue this is drive it. And I think that's a fair trade. Like I said, with the stiffer engine mounts, the rough idle where it'll shake your rearview mirror and stuff, that again, it gives you that race car feel. And it is really fun to be in the car and experience all that. It's really hard for me to film to show you that, but when you're in it and get to feel it vibrating you while you're driving and idling and stuff, it is one of the funnest differences in a car I've ever experienced. So obviously there's the speed and the performance, and that's absolutely amazing. Got the burbles and the pops coming from just stock exhaust, which is absolutely insane to me. You know, the seats are more comfortable than you would think. They're race seats, they hug you, they look spectacular. Everyone talks about how uncomfortable they are. Those are usually people who haven't sat in them, or they've maybe sat in a previous version. These ones are good. They're more comfortable than you would expect looking at them. This car is so good, my want and my goal of getting a Senna has dropped to where I don't think I want one. I'm gonna wait for something else to maybe be that car for me. I'm really starting to think the Elva might be that next level for me, just because it's so unique. And the more I look into it and the more technology they put in it and just problem solving behind it is something that makes me excited. But still, I think I'd rather have this. It looks better, sounds better, drives better, and is just all around a better car in my opinion. Saying that, I've never driven a Senna, so I can't say that until I've driven one. But I'm not really pushing hard to get one. I'm gonna have to find another car in that value to push myself towards, because I think I'd rather have this. Maybe I'll go get a Spider instead and just have two of them. Let me know what you think. I absolutely love this car. I see me owning it for a very long time. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, hit the thumbs up, all those awesome YouTube things. Let me know for sure if there is absolutely anything you wanna know or see on the car, and I will get that in the next video. Like I said, it's pretty much perfect, and I'm just gonna go enjoy it. So see you on the next one.